My name is Patrick Coverton, and in March 2023, the Bigfoot I had frozen suddenly escaped from his cryogenic chamber, challenging everything science understood about suspended animation. The Sasquatch became far more dangerous than before. Consumed with anger, it had been building up for 40 years, and the creature remembered exactly who to brutally attack. In November 1983, my specialized hunting team successfully tracked and captured an adult male Sasquatch in the remote Cascade Mountains. The creature, standing nearly 10 feet tall and weighing an estimated 800 pounds, was brought down with high-powered tranquilizer rounds after a 3-week hunt following reports of livestock killings that suggested an unusually aggressive specimen. The final confrontation took place in a narrow canyon where the creature fought with savage intelligence even as the sedatives took effect. Multiple dart rounds were required to overwhelm its massive system, each shot carefully placed to avoid vital organs. The creature's resistance to tranquilizers was remarkable, requiring doses that would have killed any known mammal before finally collapsing with eyes that burned with unmistakable hatred. My examination revealed multiple bullet wounds from previous encounters with humans, evidence that this specimen had survived encounters that should have been fatal. The wounds were in various stages of healing, suggesting remarkable regenerative capabilities that went far beyond normal mammalian biology. The creature was immediately transported to my private research facility located in the remote Montana wilderness. My research facility was a massive concrete structure built in complete isolation, surrounded by hundreds of miles of uninhabited wilderness that provided perfect concealment from government oversight and public scrutiny. The complex consisted of multiple interconnected buildings designed to withstand extreme weather conditions and potential security threats, with reinforced walls that could contain the most dangerous specimens known to science. The facility's location had been chosen specifically for its remoteness and inaccessibility. The nearest town was over 200 miles away, connected only by a single dirt road that was impassable during winter months. Helicopter landing pads provided the primary means of transportation, while underground fuel storage and supply warehouses allowed the facility to operate independently for months without external contact. The main laboratory building housed the most advanced cryogenic preservation systems ever constructed for biological research. The preservation chambers were custom-built using military-grade materials and technology that I had acquired through classified government contracts. Each chamber was capable of maintaining perfect environmental conditions for decades while monitoring every aspect of a specimen's biological status. The facility's power systems were completely independent, utilizing a combination of diesel generators, solar panels, and wind turbines that provided redundant energy sources. Underground fuel tanks contained enough diesel to operate the facility for 2 years without resupply, while battery backup systems could maintain critical preservation functions for weeks during power outages. Security systems included motion sensors, thermal imaging cameras, and electromagnetic field detectors that monitored the entire perimeter for any unauthorized approach. The facility's isolation made detection unlikely, but I had invested heavily in technology that would provide early warning of any potential threats to my research operations. The preservation process began immediately upon the creature's arrival at the facility. I administered a carefully formulated cocktail of antifreeze compounds and cellular preservatives that I had developed specifically for large mammalian specimens. The chemical mixture represented years of my research into cryogenic preservation, incorporating compounds that could prevent cellular damage while maintaining tissue integrity during extended freezing periods. The creature was placed in the facility's primary preservation chamber, a technological marvel that represented the pinnacle of my cryogenic research. The chamber was constructed from materials that could withstand extreme temperature variations while maintaining perfect environmental control. The interior was lined with hundreds of sensors that monitored every aspect of the creature's condition, from core body temperature to neural activity patterns that might indicate consciousness or distress. The preservation chamber maintained a constant temperature of -196 degrees Celsius, effectively stopping all biological processes while preventing the cellular damage that typically occurred during freezing. Automated systems continuously monitored atmospheric composition, pressure levels, and electromagnetic fields within the chamber, making microscopic adjustments to ensure optimal preservation conditions. The chamber's design incorporated advanced life support systems that could theoretically maintain the specimen indefinitely. Computer systems analyzed thousands of data points every second, detecting any deviation from perfect stasis and automatically correcting environmental conditions. The technology represented decades of my research into suspended animation and represented the most sophisticated preservation system ever constructed. Backup systems included redundant cooling mechanisms, emergency power supplies, and fail-safe protocols that would maintain preservation even during catastrophic facility failures. The chamber was designed to operate independently for extended periods, with internal power sources and environmental controls that could function without external support. For 40 years, the creature remained in perfect stasis, while my research partner, Dr. Helena Voss, and I conducted the most comprehensive study of Sasquatch physiology ever attempted. Our research team consisted of specialists in genetics, neurology, cellular biology, and cryptozoology, all sworn to secrecy regarding the nature of our work and the location of the facility. Our initial research focused on basic physiological analysis and genetic mapping. Tissue samples were extracted using specialized equipment that could obtain specimens without compromising the preservation process. The samples revealed cellular structures that were unlike anything in the scientific literature, with characteristics that placed the creature outside any known taxonomic classification. Genetic analysis revealed DNA sequences that showed both human and unknown characteristics, suggesting an evolutionary path that had diverged from human ancestors millions of years ago. The creature's genetic code contained sequences that were completely novel, indicating adaptations for survival in extreme environments that exceeded anything seen in nature. The creature's cellular structure was remarkable in its efficiency and durability. Muscle fibers were 3 times denser than human tissue, with energy utilization rates that exceeded any known mammal. The cellular walls were reinforced with protein structures that provided exceptional resistance to damage and enhanced regenerative capabilities. Bone analysis revealed a skeletal structure that was reinforced with mineral deposits that made it nearly unbreakable. The bones contained calcium concentrations that were 50% higher than human bones, while maintaining flexibility that prevented brittleness. The skeletal system was perfectly designed for supporting massive muscle mass while providing protection against impact damage. The nervous system showed the most remarkable characteristics. Neural pathways were more complex than human brain structure, with redundancies that would allow survival of injuries that would be fatal to any known species. Brain scans revealed cognitive capabilities that approached human levels while maintaining characteristics that were uniquely adapted for survival in extreme environments. Most significantly, our research revealed the creature's extraordinary regenerative capabilities. The bullet wounds that had been present during capture continued to heal, even in cryogenic preservation. Dr. Voss and I documented the slow but steady repair of damaged tissue, initially assuming it was simply residual cellular activity with no greater significance than normal wound healing processes. However, detailed analysis over the first decade revealed that the healing process was far more complex than we had initially understood. The creature's regenerative mechanisms were not simply repairing damage, they were actively improving and enhancing the creature's physical systems. Damaged muscle tissue was being rebuilt with increased density and strength, while bone fractures healed with additional mineral deposits that made the bones stronger than before injury. The nervous system showed the most remarkable changes during preservation. New neural pathways developed throughout the first 20 years, creating connections that enhanced coordination, reflexes, and cognitive processing. Brain scans from year 10 showed measurably different patterns than those from the initial preservation, suggesting that the creature's intelligence was actually increasing during stasis. By year 20, the changes were undeniable and deeply concerning. The creature's muscle mass had increased by 15% despite complete immobility. Bone density had improved by 23%, while neural complexity had increased by measures that challenged our understanding of brain development. Most disturbing brain activity patterns showed increasing organization and complexity, suggesting that consciousness might be developing even during preservation. My research notes from the later years showed growing concern about the implications of what we were observing. The creature was not simply healing, it was evolving, using the preservation process to enhance capabilities that were already beyond human understanding. The implications were staggering, suggesting that the creature might emerge from preservation far more dangerous than when it had been captured. The preservation process had somehow created ideal conditions for the creature's regenerative mechanisms to operate at maximum efficiency. Without the normal stresses of consciousness, metabolism, and environmental factors, the creature's body could dedicate all available resources to improvement and enhancement. 40 years of uninterrupted regeneration had created something unprecedented in biological science. Monitoring equipment detected subtle but consistent changes in the creature's electromagnetic signature throughout the preservation period. The patterns suggested increasing neural activity and organization, as if the creature's brain was developing new capabilities during its enforced sleep. Dr. Voss and I theorized that the creature might be partially conscious, experiencing a form of extended dreaming that allowed continued mental development. The creature's cardiovascular system underwent remarkable adaptations during preservation. Heart muscle became more efficient, developing additional chambers and pathways that could support enhanced physical performance. Blood vessels developed redundant pathways and increased capacity, while the entire circulatory system optimized itself for maximum efficiency and durability. Respiratory system modifications were equally impressive. Lung capacity increased by 30% over the preservation period, while oxygen processing efficiency improved dramatically. The respiratory system developed additional air sacs and enhanced gas exchange mechanisms that would allow the creature to operate at peak performance even in low oxygen environments. The skeletal system underwent the most dramatic changes during the 40-year preservation period. Bones became progressively denser and stronger, with mineral content that exceeded anything seen in nature. Joints developed additional cartilage and lubricating mechanisms that would provide enhanced mobility and durability. The entire skeletal structure reinforced itself against potential damage while maintaining flexibility and range of motion. Muscular development continued throughout preservation despite complete immobility. Muscle fibers became more densely packed and efficient, while connective tissues strengthened to support enhanced performance. The creature's muscular system was systematically upgrading itself during preservation, preparing for physical demands that would exceed its original capabilities. The creature's sensory systems also showed remarkable enhancement during preservation. Neural pathways associated with sight, hearing, smell, and touch developed additional connections and processing capabilities. Brain scans suggested that the creature's sensory acuity was improving dramatically, creating perception abilities that would far exceed its original specifications. Most disturbing were the changes in brain structure associated with memory and emotional processing. Neural networks in these areas showed increasing complexity and organization throughout the preservation period, suggesting that the creature was not only maintaining consciousness during preservation, but was actively processing and organizing its experiences. The implications were terrifying. The creature might be spending 40 years in conscious imprisonment, building rage and planning revenge. Temperature regulation systems within the creature's body showed remarkable adaptation during preservation. The creature developed enhanced mechanisms for maintaining optimal body temperature in extreme conditions, with improved circulation and metabolic control that would allow survival in environments that would be fatal to other species. The creature's immune system underwent significant enhancement during preservation. White blood cell production increased, while the immune response became more sophisticated and efficient. The creature's body was developing resistance to diseases and toxins that would affect other species, creating a biological defense system that was virtually impenetrable. Digestive system modifications allowed for more efficient nutrient processing and energy storage. The creature's metabolism became more efficient while maintaining the ability to process a wider variety of food sources. These adaptations would allow the creature to survive in environments where other species would starve. Dr. Voss and I documented every change meticulously, creating the most comprehensive study of biological enhancement ever conducted. However, the implications of our findings became increasingly disturbing as the years progressed. The creature in preservation was no longer the same being that had been captured in 1983. It was becoming something far more dangerous. The preservation chamber's monitoring systems detected increasing electromagnetic activity in the creature's brain during the final years of preservation. The patterns suggested complex thought processes and emotional states that indicated full consciousness despite the creature's immobile state. The creature was aware of its imprisonment and was using the time to prepare for eventual freedom. Temperature fluctuations in the preservation chamber became more frequent during the final months, as if the creature's enhanced metabolism was beginning to overcome the cryogenic systems. The facility's automated systems compensated for these changes, but the data suggested that the creature's biological processes were becoming too powerful for indefinite preservation. My final research notes, written shortly before that terrible day in March 2023, expressed deep concern about the creature's continued development. The being in preservation was no longer the same creature that had been captured 40 years earlier. 4 decades of enhancement had created something with capabilities that exceeded anything in the natural world, and the implications for what might happen if the creature ever awakened were terrifying. On March 15, 2023, a severe thunderstorm struck the Montana wilderness where my facility was located. Lightning strikes caused power fluctuations throughout the electrical grid, and despite multiple backup systems, a temporary malfunction occurred in the cryogenic preservation systems. The fluctuation lasted only 17 seconds, but it was enough to cause a temperature rise of 3 degrees in the preservation chamber, a seemingly insignificant change that would prove catastrophic for everyone in the facility. I was conducting routine maintenance checks on the preservation systems with Dr. Voss when the temperature increase triggered metabolic processes that had been building pressure for 40 years. The creature's enhanced healing mechanisms, which had been operating at minimal levels throughout preservation, suddenly accelerated as the body began to respond to the environmental change. Neural activity spiked dramatically as consciousness returned after 4 decades of enforced imprisonment. The creature's eyes suddenly opened, and those eyes, which had been closed for 40 years, immediately locked onto my position with unmistakable intelligence and rage that had been building for decades of conscious imprisonment. I saw recognition in those eyes. It knew exactly who I was and what I had done to it. The creature's awakening was not gradual or disoriented as might be expected after such prolonged unconsciousness. Instead, it was immediate and explosive, as if the creature had been planning this moment for 40 years. The intelligence behind those eyes was ancient and furious, focused entirely on revenge against the humans who had stolen 4 decades of its life. My first instinct was to reach for the emergency sedation controls, but the creature's movements were faster than anything I had anticipated. 40 years of enhanced reflexes and coordination made the creature's responses superhuman in their speed and precision. The preservation chamber, designed to contain a sedated specimen, shattered like glass as the creature burst free with a roar that shook the entire facility. The creature's first movements demonstrated strength that had been enhanced far beyond its original capabilities. The reinforced walls of the preservation chamber, designed to withstand tremendous internal pressure, cracked and buckled under the force of the creature's emergence. metal supports that were rated to hold several tons bent and twisted as if they were made of paper. Dr. Voss's screams echoed through the corridors as the creature's massive hands closed around her throat. The killing was swift but brutal, demonstrating crushing power that could snap human bones like twigs. The creature's rage was focused and intelligent, targeting the humans responsible for its imprisonment with calculated violence that showed sophisticated understanding of cause and effect. I carefully looked as the creature's enhanced capabilities were immediately apparent in how it moved through the facility. Its coordination was perfect despite 40 years of immobility. Its strength was beyond anything documented during the original capture, and its intelligence was evident in how it systematically began to hunt down every human in the complex. The facility's other researchers, drawn by the commotion and Dr. Voss's screams, arrived to find her broken body and a creature that moved with predatory grace, despite having been motionless for 4 decades. The creature's attacks were systematic and efficient, using its enhanced strength to tear through the research team with savage precision that left no doubt about its intentions. Dr. James Morrison, the facility's senior researcher, attempted to activate the emergency containment protocols, but the creature's intelligence allowed it to anticipate and counter human responses. It destroyed the control panels with precise strikes that demonstrated understanding of the facility's systems, preventing any attempt to re-establish containment or call for outside assistance. Research assistant Maria Santos attempted to hide in a storage room, but the creature's enhanced senses allowed it to track her location with ease. Her death was particularly brutal, as the creature seemed to take pleasure in demonstrating its enhanced capabilities on someone who had been involved in maintaining its imprisonment for the past 5 years. The creature's rampage through the facility was methodical and thorough. It moved from room to room with purpose, seeking out every human presence while systematically destroying research equipment and documentation. The enhanced healing that had occurred during preservation had not only repaired old wounds, but had strengthened the creature beyond its original capabilities. I had managed to reach the communications room when the creature awakened, and the facility's security cameras allowed me to witness the systematic execution of my research team. What I saw would haunt me for the rest of my life, however long that might be. The security footage showed the creature's methodical approach to killing each researcher. It didn't simply attack, it studied each victim first, as if recognizing their individual roles in its imprisonment. Dr. Morrison's death was particularly disturbing, as the creature seemed to remember him from earlier years and took extra time to ensure his suffering before delivering the final blow. I watched in horror as the creature demonstrated intelligence that exceeded all our previous observations. It systematically destroyed research equipment in a specific order, targeting the most critical systems first to prevent any possibility of recontainment. The creature's actions showed detailed understanding of the facility's operations and a sophisticated plan for ensuring its permanent freedom. The creature's enhanced physical capabilities were terrifying to witness. It moved through the facility with impossible speed and coordination, its enhanced senses allowing it to track the location of every human despite their attempts to hide. The 40 years of preservation had created something that was no longer bound by normal biological limitations. Most disturbing was the creature's obvious pleasure in its revenge. The security cameras captured expressions of satisfaction as it eliminated each researcher, as if it was finally balancing the scales for 40 years of imprisonment and experimentation. The creature's intelligence was evident in how it saved certain individuals for last, creating a hierarchy of revenge based on their level of involvement in its captivity. I managed to escape the initial massacre by triggering the facility's emergency lockdown protocols. The blast doors sealed sections of the facility, temporarily containing the creature, while I fled through emergency exits that led to the surface through a network of concealed tunnels. But even as I ran, I could hear the sound of tearing metal as the creature systematically dismantled every barrier between itself and freedom. The creature's response to the lockdown demonstrated intelligence that exceeded all our previous observations. Rather than becoming trapped or confused, it systematically began to tear through the blast doors using strength that made the reinforced barriers meaningless. The sound of tearing metal echoed through the facility as the creature methodically dismantled every obstacle between itself and freedom. The emergency exits, designed to be used only in case of catastrophic facility failure, were torn open from the inside with such force that the reinforced concrete surrounding them cracked and crumbled. The creature's escape was not a panicked flight, but calculated destruction of everything connected to its imprisonment. I reached the nearest communication station 18 hours later, my clothes torn and my face marked by terror that would never fully fade. My emergency call brought a response team of military contractors and wildlife specialists equipped with heavy tranquilizers and containment equipment designed for the most dangerous specimens known to science. The response team, led by Colonel Rebecca Hayes, arrived at the facility expecting to find a contained situation that could be managed with standard protocols for dangerous animal recovery. What they discovered was a scene of systematic destruction that defied explanation and challenged everything they understood about animal behavior and capability. The facility had been torn apart from the inside, with research equipment destroyed, and human remains scattered throughout the corridors in patterns that suggested deliberate arrangement rather than random violence. The creature had not simply killed, it had made a statement about the consequences of imprisonment and experimentation on intelligent beings. The preservation chamber was completely destroyed, with fragments of reinforced materials scattered across multiple rooms. The force required to cause such destruction exceeded anything in the team's experience, suggesting capabilities that went far beyond normal animal strength. The pattern of destruction showed intelligence and purpose that was more disturbing than simple animal rage. 7 researchers had been killed in the creature's rampage, their bodies showing evidence of violence that went far beyond simple animal attack. The creature had targeted humans specifically, ignoring equipment except when it interfered with its objectives of eliminating everyone responsible for its imprisonment. Most disturbing was the evidence of the creature's enhanced capabilities captured by the facility's security systems. Footage showed movements that were faster and more coordinated than any known primate, combined with strength that allowed it to tear through reinforced barriers designed to contain the most dangerous specimens. 40 years of preservation had created something far more dangerous than what had originally been captured. The creature was nowhere to be found when the response team arrived. Emergency exits had been torn open from the inside, and massive footprints led away from the facility into the dense Montana wilderness. The tracks showed a stride length that indicated the creature was moving with purpose and speed that would make tracking extremely difficult even under ideal conditions. The facility's research data, accumulated over 4 decades of study, had been systematically destroyed. Computer systems were smashed beyond recovery, paper documents were shredded, and biological samples were contaminated beyond any possibility of analysis. The creature had ensured that no evidence of its captivity or the research conducted on it would survive. The incident was classified at the highest levels, and the facility was quietly shut down. Official reports attributed the deaths to equipment malfunction and structural collapse, avoiding any mention of the creature that had caused the destruction. The truth was too dangerous to reveal. Somewhere in the vast Montana wilderness, an enhanced Sasquatch with 40 years of accumulated rage was now free. The creature that emerged from preservation was not the same being that I had captured in 1983. It was something far more dangerous, enhanced by suffering and driven by a rage that had been building for 4 decades. The combination of enhanced physical capabilities and sophisticated intelligence made it a threat unlike anything the scientific community had ever encountered. Somewhere in the endless Montana wilderness, the creature continues its existence, free after 40 years of imprisonment, but forever changed by the experience. The being that awakened carries with it the memory of 4 decades of violation and the enhanced capabilities to ensure that such treatment will never be inflicted on it again. The security footage from that terrible day serves as the only evidence of what happens when science crosses the line from research into torture and the consequences of underestimating the intelligence and memory of creatures we don't fully understand.